So I'm going to go in the order of Gevo, ASST, Mara, and then RKT, Rocket, I believe. And so I'll be going over those in that order, and then I'll check back in the chat after. And so let's pull up Gevo, and I'm not going to add them to the list over here just because I don't have the paid subscription to TradingView, so I have to delete all of the stocks whenever I do Crypto Corner Stacker and stuff. It's kind of funny, but yeah, let's first go over here to Gevo. I will be getting a subscription though in around Black Friday, along with renewing my unusual whales. But yeah, so Gevo over here, let's check that out. My doodles over here, nice little cup and handle there. And yeah, I mean, it looks like, hey, I mean, so last Sunday, so I guess I should say last Friday, so on October 24th, Gevo closed at 247, and I talked about, it looks like, I don't know what I talked about exactly, but I drew up this inverse head and shoulders pattern. It does seem like that is, has played out. And so, but maybe it doesn't go all the way down to where I've drawn. Sometimes, it's like you draw a level and you become very stubborn. I'm not going to buy it until it gets to that exact same level. But maybe you're wrong. Maybe you're off by a few cents, and then you don't get a position. You get left behind. So let's, consider that and stuff. But I also want to look at, I'm going to try to look at all of these on the monthly as well, just because October just ended. And what can we see here? So this kind of looks like, a little bit of a, I don't know, double or triple top, got multiple wicks up above 237 and actually closed October at 234. This did put in a lower high. Let's see, what was the high for the month of October? The high was 295. The high over here was 298, so yeah, lower high, and then this came down, and then again, lower high. So maybe it's going to be pulling back a little bit more. But this closed up here. So yeah, I mean, it could be coming down a little bit more. With that, we also see, the humps in volume here. This hump looks a little bit smaller than that hump. So while that might seem, bearish because you want, or that I would say is a little bit bearish because you want to be seeing that volume going up with the stock price. But since the stock price didn't put in a higher high, it has been getting rejected over here. I feel like that kind of suggests that it's really, it's kind of like a weak effort, but it's not overexerting, to then like drop massively. So I think that this could just pull back a little bit more, maybe consolidate somewhere, maybe around $2. I feel like I've probably talked about that level. And then once it comes down to 2, then once it gets, a surge in volume, then it could maybe start to be breaking out. But yeah, this is on the monthly, so this is all going to take a lot of time. So this, high over here was from a year ago, so the month of October 2024, and we saw kind of a similar, candle and shape there for the month of October this year. But yeah, let's just switch over to the daily, pull up the chart here. I'm just going to make sure that is on the linear scale. If I click the button, it switches to log. And so let's leave it linear for now, looking at the shorter time frame. And pull up the drawings that I have here. I just need to fast forward to the current time where I have the drawings over here. And so, yeah, with that being said, we have kind of seen this downtrend in volume. I kind of talked about that, but more on the monthly scale. And yeah, so I mean, looking at it from over here, we've got a couple blips in that volume. But, the blip over here, but generally like the trend is that there have been like lower highs in the volume, excluding this one point here. But even that one blip outside of that downtrend, that did result in a higher high, but that blip was nothing compared to the volume over here. So that does make me think that there is some divergence here going back to like the middle of August, higher highs in the stock price, lower highs in the volume. So that means that the effort behind it moving that higher, the volume that is the effort moving that higher, is not supporting the move. So we see a pullback here. And then we also, with these higher highs in the stock price, do see lower highs in the RSI. Or actually, maybe no. I mean, it actually did go a little bit higher. So over here, the high was, let's see, I think that should be above Ed's head, 74.90. And then over here, the high was 77.10. So just a little bit higher. So that makes me think that, the pullback here, may not go on for much longer. So that would really make me think that, like right shoulder coming down to around $2. Seems like, that could be a possibility. And another thing, I've got this kind of like confluence of levels here that's going up to the high here. I should really just extend this to up to the high here. And so that is going to be a high of 295. So let's just adjust that over here. I think that this would give us some more value. Maybe put this ahead to like 320, I think, or maybe 315 still into the future. That we could be seeing it come down to those levels. I actually might just do 310, and then so we can see it on the chart here. And so, we do have the 618 that's around 208. We have tested the 50%, which is around 225. And so, yeah, I think that we're kind of in, the discount zone, getting below, or I should say we're nearly in the discount zone, which would be getting below the 50%, so below 225 with that close at 235. I think that this is probably going to go a little bit lower, maybe around 2 or maybe 210, kind of corresponding with the highs from over here. The high on August 13th was 215, so maybe just going a little bit below 225. And to be honest, I could see it testing 208. So I'd look at that. Let's see. I can look up contracts real quick, and I might just pull over this list. And we can see, let's see, what is a contract? What is the one that I'm looking at? This is GIVO. So I'm just going to type that here. I'm just going to do the search here so we can see a list of all of them. Highest volumes. It looks like the open interest has been decreasing for calls, but it's not, a ton of open interest changing. And actually, if we do sort this by the highest open interest, we can see that the $3 strike call that expires in February on the 20th has an open interest of around 13.4 thousand contracts still open. They did see a decrease going from Thursday into Friday of 79 contracts, but generally that's not really looking so bad. So let's open this one just since it has the most amount of open interest. But actually, first we can also sort by premium to see what one had the most premium, only 15,000. And that's kind of similar to what has a lot of open interest, which is, the $3 strike call that expires in February versus this one that actually, that expires February this year. This one expires January of 2028. So that's quite a big leap. $15,000 premium, but really, that's not a ton of money as far as options go. So let's sort by open interest again, get that one, the $3 strike call that expires in February, and we can just look at that real quick. And, I don't think that there's going to be too much to see in the data here. If we go back past 30 days, the biggest drawdown in net call premium was a dip. Let's see, kind of blips out down 200,000. Or over here, the biggest increase was up about 300,000. So it's really, it doesn't really stand out that much. And those were also in the past, so nothing more recently. So if this is going to do anything, I could see it pulling back a little bit more or just being kind of boring, whatever it does. The options data would suggest that something exciting is coming up, and I'm not seeing it yet there. So hopefully that is helpful for you, Ricardo. And, another one that you requested, but I also got some other requests, was to follow up on ASST, which is one that I hold. I also have some calls now. But yeah, let's talk about this. This was like, Thursday, and I might actually want to pull up a Mike Albert tweet. And so let's just, go over here to search Mike Alfred. And I'm just gonna zoom out a little bit, and maybe I can switch to just searching. What did I want to search? The bottom. I just want to see what has he said lately on the bottom. Yep. So this is one that I saw this and I was kind of recognizing. This is a little bit later after I had sold a little bit or all of my Bitmine and the remaining call that I had for Mara. So, maybe I'm a little bit guilty, but I didn't flip bullish. I just was managing risk, managing my stress levels, whatnot, how I sleep, all of that. And so Mike Alfred over here, I'm just going to zoom in since I found it. We can read this a little bit better over here. So he's saying if you flipped bearish at the bottom, and so this is the evening of Thursday, October 30th, if you flipped bearish at the bottom, you're not very good at this. But here's the good news. If you work for the man for the next 35 years and save $500 every 2 weeks into a S&P index fund, you should be able to retire in a median-priced house in Toledo, Ohio, or Wichita Falls, Texas. So that's him being funny, and got this guy following up with Cincinnati or Cleveland, and yeah. So I think that when you're seeing stuff like that. Kind of a way to manage, what he's talking about is to have a sacrificial lamb, which is like maybe you have more positions than you want to have, and maybe you're green in some of them. And, maybe it's just, well, I spread myself too thin. And so I am just going to, manage risk, not have more exposure by this. So I sold a little bit at the bottom, but I still have the majority of my position. So I did not flip bearish, but I was trying to manage risk a little bit better. But yeah, I think that is aligned with the topic of, recognizing euphoria as well as bottoms, having sacrificial lambs to give back to the stonk gods. But yeah, ASST, and I'm going to adjust this. I wasn't doing this with the watermark, including the description, but I do like having the description there. This is Strive Incorporated for, confusing companies that tickers don't match Strive or don't match the name of the company. And so what we can see here, we can adjust this Fibonacci retracement. And actually we don't need to because it is going up to the high over here, and I'm actually just going to lock that in place so I know where it's at. The high was 182. The high was actually 181, so I am going to adjust that. And the low, I should probably move that forward a little bit. Let's see, what was the low over here on October 16th? That was 80 cents. Over here it was 78 cents. So yeah, that's the low. So I should make this 78 cents. 78 right there. And then I'm just going to boost it forward. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's going to be putting it at 292. Hopefully I did that right. Yep, lined up with the bottom there so we can see that. And so I feel okay about that. And so what we can see is that on Thursday, we were in the discount zone. We were below 50%. We were testing the 618 at 117, having hit a low on October 30th of 109. And this is kind of like my psychological, thought process here. The market psychology thought process is that everybody's like, oh, Mike Alfred, he's this legend. He's talking about this. This is going to go up. It's going to squeeze just like Beyond did. And then it doesn't happen. And then this is when people say, they capitulate. They say, it's going to go sub 1. I'll just buy there. And then it hits a low on the 30th of 109. Maybe it had some after hours or pre-market trading lower than that. I'm not sure. And if there is some stuff going on in the overnight trading, let me know in the chat. I'll check on it over there. In Webull, I can't look at it in TradingView for some reason, either because I don't pay for my subscription or just, I'm not familiar with it enough. Even if I switch over to the 15-minute, it still doesn't show up with the overnight. But anyways, with ASST or AST, let's Let's cover up there. Ass. Anyways, yeah, with this, what was I saying? I forget what I was saying. I'm an idiot. Yeah, basically, that people are saying, oh, it's going to go sub 1. So I'll just sell my shares here and I'll buy back sub 1. We even got the 786 right at $1. So I'll just buy back at or below that red line. But then there are also other people that, either didn't sell here and they're just waiting for it to be sub 1. And then maybe this really starts to move next week and people, feel like they're getting left behind. It didn't go sub 1. I saw a lot of posts across the board. Colin Gladman, I respect a lot of other accounts, just not being, showing a lot of conviction in ASST, at least as far as the chart goes. One account is Free Wyckoff's. Maybe I'll pull that up. I think he does some really good analysis, but he's just a little bit arrogant in my view. And I don't really like that, but let's see, Free Wyckoff's. And we can just, I could scroll, but I'll just pull up ASST and see, I guess he hasn't posted about that. So I will not search that, I guess. I'll go back. And maybe it's in his replies. I'm not sure. Let's see. Okay. There's something that I want to show you guys. Maybe he deleted it. This would have been November 1st. So 30th. Yeah, and so stuff like this where it's just like, here's some VPA. It's like, okay, great. Like throwing the words out, but it's like not necessarily that helpful. This is Hims. I think it was around then when he posted this. Sorry, I'm just gonna try to find it. Maybe he deleted it. Maybe it wasn't this. Yeah, let's talk poor volume. Let's see. This is, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's like, I feel like, yeah, I don't know. ASST. Yeah, why didn't it pop up? Okay, so this is from Colin. He's saying, if this candle finishes strong, I like the stock. Amazing what happens in the discount zone. And so, it came back to the 618. And, it's probably because his are drawn in the log scale. And let's see, the one to the up there, 181. So if I, just out of curiosity, if I switch this over to the log scale, 934, does that match what he has? 9.3, yeah, just about. So yeah, I mean, maybe, I should, draw that a little bit or do more stuff on the log scale. Maybe I should always just do that. But yeah, anyways, with this, he's saying that, it's in the discount zone. If this candle finishes strong, I like the stock. So it's, if it does something, then he's interested. If it doesn't, he's not. And so with that, I think that it did something, like finished strong. So let's see. That was over here. That would have been on the 30th. So did the 30th close strong? Yeah, I mean, it kind of did. And then we closed the week stronger. Oh, maybe I should look at this on the monthly. I'm all over the place. I mean, that's not such a good look, but volume stepping in to buy that up. So maybe that is, actually something of interest. And looking at this, this is on the log scale, but a near test of the 786. So that's pretty interesting. And yeah, he wasn't talking about the monthly, was he? That's the daily. Yeah, but even on the monthly, I mean, that's like the discount zone. So that's pretty interesting. We can also flip over to see what that looks like on the linear. Yeah, so that doesn't really look like too much on the linear, but on the log scale, you can, get a little bit more out of that. And yeah, so maybe I should do more on the log scale or just, get in the habit of checking and maybe I decide that. But anyways, let's just delete that. Got the drawings up there, switch that back to the daily, and then just continue on with this. Let's follow up with this, show some more replies. And so there's this guy that's apparently not great, and he says, never agree with Jake. It's a forbidden rule. He posts a line chart without volume and called it a bull flag. Straight to OTC, LOL. And yeah, I mean, I just think that this is like the wrong idea because he's got this like, I don't know if it's like God complex type of thing, that it's like it's only Wyckoff analysis and that's the only analysis. And I don't think that's, the only way to trade. Let's see, there's this, like old timer trader that I've interacted with. I'm forgetting his name, drawing a blank. But I was asking him a while ago about volume, and it's like he just doesn't use it. There are tons of different ways to trade. And so, but this is what he was pointing out, that I find this to be useful, that there's this channel here, a high volume rejection from the base of that channel. So I could see this coming down. So I think that there is, good to be managing that risk with that, but also, I mean, we'll see. I clearly have a bias. I have more conviction in Mike Alfred than I do in Free Wyckoffs. Also, he turns his comments off a lot, which it's like, it'd be nice to engage. And if you do comment with him, he's going to push his Discord. And so, why'd you delete your big bear posts from yesterday? Was hoping to see if they'd play out. I'm deleting all my posts and starting fresh, disabling comments, going to make it entirely educational, no back and forth. It will play out. Fair enough, looking forward to it. And so what I'm going to do is, I'm deleting all my posts, starting fresh, disabling comments, going to make it entirely educational and no back and forth. It will play out. There's no certainty in the market. So I kind of, I look forward to, I don't know. I just think that, arrogance, I don't think that's good. But anyways, I'm just going to take a screenshot of it like this, so I at least know it's ASST. And this is just going to save to, I was almost going to not include the upper chart up here. And so, let's actually, what I want to do is I want to include this. Let's see, sorry. It will play out. I'm going to zoom out there as 100%. Maybe I should have been doing that. And let's see. Maybe, I'll be like, not that I want to troll him or anything. I don't want to, but I just don't think arrogance is good. So I'm just going to screenshot that. And so that'll save to my desktop. We can come back to it. So, there is some concern with ASST that it could be coming down. So I don't think this is like a YOLO life savings type of position on. And like for me, they never are. I'm a small fish, a small fry. I got a very small position in ASST. And if you guys are curious, I can share with you. But it's just a small position, just having some fun. And to be clear, like Mike Alfred talks about Cypher. I have 3 shares of Cypher. It's currently at like 1865. So it's just a very small position. If it pulls back, I can add more. If it goes up, I'm happy to hold and just, ride the Mike Alfred train. Unless that sounds weird, then maybe I take it back. But with ASST, I have 20 shares at an average price of $1.38. It closed 5 cents lower than my average. So, I bought a little bit up here, only 10 shares at a time. And if you're curious, I can tell you what prices I bought at. So initially I bought at 134, so above this price. And then I bought another 10 shares at 142 just because there's like a 420 in there. It's fun. And I think that I might have an order to buy 10 more shares at $1. But if it doesn't go to $1, that's fine. And then I do have some calls, which, and also none of this is financial advice. I might lose money on this, and that's totally fine. I do have a $2 strike January calls. And so we could look at those. I have 3 of them at a, let's see, 25-cent average. And so if we just come over here to my bookmarks, ASST, $2 strike call, all this volume. So I put out that video. We can see this is 5.2 million volume on that day. And actually, since this it's less than 7. So I can just go back 7 days. And we got all that data right here. And yeah, let's see, just go back 7 days here. And we can see all of that. And so when I put out that video about $2 million, that is, or sorry, $20 million, that is this green line going up really high that ended with net call premium increasing by 20 million. And then if we look at this contract, I'm not sure if it was this one or just generally it went up 20 million. That was on, what's the date? That was the 27th of October. So on the 27th of October, yeah, let's see. Open interest was about 23,000. Volume was 130,000 traded on that day, and then it increased by about 67,000, and it went from about 23,000 to now being around 117. And so something about like the Discord is like, I would post like an update on this in the Discord if I was doing that. Like if there were paying members, like just like $1 a month, but actually for updates, I think initially that would be for members $1 a month, but then I might later do that. I'm not sure. I'd have to decide on that. But then I could just like casually do updates and give an update tomorrow that I would normally post on the channel, but people don't really seem to engage with those that much. To share, did it go up from Friday into Monday? And so generally, we see the open interest on these calls going up with millions of dollars over here, hundreds of thousands over here. So yeah, I think that free Wyckoffs might end up being wrong. And I think that, it's not good to, get a big head and stuff. But yeah, so I'm leaning on, at least for myself, for my own self-interest, on this going up, but I am prepared for it to come down to 1. I'm prepared for this to go down to, like what he's talking about here. I'm prepared for the possibility of this going to 0. Any stock can do that. And so I think that's something good to consider. But yeah, I think that the options data and Mike Alfred make me think that this is going to be going up, but it might not be going up like tomorrow. It might not be going up next month. I think like in 2026, we could see this perform very well. And you can look at, I think a really good example is IREN, ticker symbol IREN. He was calling the bottom of that like $1 or something a share, and that's now in like the 60s. So, I think that I have some confidence in him, so I'm not too worried about it. And, I manage that by just having a small position. I'm not being greedy with it. I'm just trying to have fun. But yeah, let's go on to the next one. So this is the request from Benjamin to follow up on Mara. And so what we can see here, really, the 753, that level, kind of arbitrary. That's the close from September 16th. 1753, or right around 1750. We're kind of testing that now. And we do have this fib retracement going from the low here from August 20th up to the high here from October 15th. We've retraced to the 618 around 18, hit a low on Halloween on the 31st with a low of 1765, just above, that yellow line that I have crossed there, but piercing that 618. So, I think that this is at a level where it could potentially find some support. We're in a new month, so I think like every month, especially, it's like not triple witching, but, it's like the end of the month on a Friday. There are going to be a lot of positions that need to close at the end of the month, and then they can reopen in November. And so maybe, it's like, oh, we went up so much in, like, let's see, let's flip over to the monthly. Let's just take a look at that real quick. Looking at this on the monthly, this doesn't look so good. This looks like, inverse hammer, big wick to the upside with a lower volume, although you do see a decrease in volume and a decreased spread in that candle, so maybe there's some hopium there. And we saw a very similar pattern over here, although it was green, and it continued up. And, so I don't know. We did see similar pattern over here. It came down. Saw similar over here, and it came down a lot. So I do think that there is some risk that this could keep going lower. So I think that's something to consider. But, this wasn't like a huge, massive amount of volume. And the result of all of that effort was it actually closed the month red. For the month, it looks like, let's see. It actually, this can't be right. Let's see here. Is this the monthly or the daily data up there? So this is actually saying that it went up. So September closed at a price of $18.26. And then we closed October at $18.27, so it actually went up by 1 penny. And so I find that to be kind of funny that it like looks super bearish, it looks super bad, but it was actually a green month. It did actually, closed higher than September closed. But I guess gapping up into October, the month ended up being red. So this kind of looks to me like this looks really bearish. But not generally, but like specifically, if you're looking at the details, it actually closed higher than September. And while this is red, it was actually green. It actually went up relative to September's close. We see lower volume, smaller spread in the candle. So yeah, like with it getting up this high and then getting rejected, there wasn't as much effort that went into that as over here. So yeah, maybe it's going to cool off a little bit. I don't know. I'm biased. I want it to go up. But if it does come down, I think at 1640's potential support. And then from there, I think what you'd want to look for is, higher lows. And so, yeah, we're still putting in higher lows, even if I make this kind of tight. Still higher lows. And actually, maybe I want to go from there. Yeah. And maybe I actually, this is a problem that I have. I'm just going to draw this as a ray so I can fine tune those points. So the low on August 20th was 14.48. So let's see if I can get that just right. It's a penny off. And then let's go to, let's see the close over here. Yeah, it would have to be this close over here, because if I move it up a little bit, then that's going over that close. So let's just put it there. And so what was the low here from August 20th? And maybe this is bad that I'm connecting a low to a close. Maybe it should be a low to a low. But I could adjust this later, so it's no big deal. Really just to kind of illustrate. Let's see. The low over here was 14.48. And then the close over here was 15.11. So let's just, adjust that there. And so, that looks fine. But then if I do adjust this just for fun to over here, that's the low to the low. There could still be some further downside, but then we'd be breaking below the lows over there. So what I might want to do, I'm just going to make sure that those levels are correct before I lock it. Yep. What I might do is just do another array. Let's just totally nerd out on this. 1480, and then I want to go to the low over here. Like I don't want to go lower than this. And so let's see, adjust that 14.48. And then the low over here on September 26th was 1573. I wish it had that 69 in it. Oh well. So right there, it locked it into place. It's kind of like different levels that I think could be acting as support based on, the lows over here, but we could still go lower because what was that low? Not 69, but 73. Low over here, 1573. Low over here, 1573. So both of them are 1573. So I can just do a little line across there. Don't want to be going lower than that. So let's keep that in mind. We've got 1750 as potential support. Then below there, if we do break below this trend line, which could be respecting that trend line and staying above around 1750. But if we do break below that, we could come down to the 786. That's around 1640, or let's say 1650, plus or minus whatever. If we do break below that, 16, psychological level, whole dollar number. And then just a little bit below that is 1573. We don't want to be going lower than that because that would be breaking the higher low trend that we have over here, and that would be kind of bearish. So something to consider there. Contracts, let's look over here. I guess I still have the contract up here, but I don't hold it anymore. We might even be able to see my sad little order from Thursday at the end of the day. You can see some sad little orders here at, right at the end of the day. This was, looks like 4 contracts. The ask was 4. Average fill was 60 cents. I believe I had a limit order for that at 56 cents. But, oh, no, it might have been at the start of the day on Friday. I think it was the start of the day on Friday. 5 on the bid side, average fill 59 cents. And so I was probably included in that, but I got a fill at 60 cents. And so that's just like managing risk. But I mean, really, we're just looking over here at Unusual Whales to look at the data, try to understand the data. Go back the past 30 days. We do see this big, upside in the stock price, which is in yellow, and that corresponded with increase in net call premium going up about $13.5 million. And then towards the top, that dropping. So it looks like people were betting long as it went up, and then they took profits at the top. So it looks like they did a pretty good trade right there just over a course of a few days. And that was on the 16th. Net call premium came down by about 8.24 million. And since I sold some calls then, I contributed to that a little bit. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, right now, currently, most recently, not a lot of signal in the upside or the downside with net call or put premium because they're, pretty close to that zero line. So yeah, I mean, I'm prepared for this to come down to around 1573. Is that going to happen? I don't know. We'll have to see. And I think, maybe we could get an idea just by looking at Bitcoin real quick. Dang, this is, dropping right now, over the past couple hours. Or the past hour, really, I imagine, as I've been streaming. Yeah, this has been falling off a cliff, but it's still above 108. I'm not worried about that. Ethereum's just slightly below 3,800. Not worried about that. Doge is just below 18 cents. Again, not worried about that. And these other ones, wow, Pengu is below 17, 1.7. I dip bought at 1.8 yesterday. I should have been more disciplined and waited for the 1.7, but I don't really care. $7, getting a little bit more Pengu. I like Pengu for fun, But yeah, Bitcoin. I mean, this is all an opportunity, and also anything that's going on overnight could be, weak hands before the market opens, and this starts to go higher. But anyways, I've gone over Jivo, ASST, and Mara. Let's now look over RKT. Another request from Ricardo, so I'll pull that up here. Should have some drawings from last week, and then I will have another little sip here. And I see that another day, another trade. It says cheers, so I will cheers you. Thank you for that. That was hopefully you're not taking off when you said that. Hopefully you're still here, but yeah, cheers again. And it's the citrus is nice. It's not, some of the beverages I had in the 6-pack were very Very hoppy, very heavy. Nice, nice occasionally, but and I am seeing the poll. It looks like I don't know if I can, populate, if I can pull up end poll. No, I don't want to end poll. I wish that I could pull it up in the chat so you guys can see it. But it looks like, I asked, do you like Witch's Brew Kit Kats? And it's 50-50. 4 votes, so 2 people like them, 3 people don't. I'm not going to bias it by voting, but yep, 50-50. But yeah, let's continue on. Bruce, I'll recheck on the chat and the requests in a minute, so I'll look at your request there in a second, but let's just first go over Rocket here. And so what we can see is from last week, I mean, I don't know, like I don't remember what I talk about. That's why I try to like leave up the drawings and not touch them. But what I imagine I talked about with this is that I thought it could be coming down potentially to like $13, corresponding with this uptrend, but in time, maybe that uptrend's a little bit higher. So maybe 13, maybe 14. And last week, what did we get? So Monday, so I guess Friday closed when I last went over this on Sunday. That had closed at 1783, and then it closed this week. And this might, I don't know if you're superstitious or anything like that, but I think people are. And so to me, it's like, I just like mentioning things like it's kind of like an obsession, because other people see them and then they get like nervous or something. And I just think, I look at numbers all the time. So you got to make it fun. Otherwise, it's just really boring. But yeah, 6.66. So 3 sixths there. Maybe that's bad luck. I don't know. But yeah, closed at 1666. Did bounce from this yellow line at 1583. Let's actually see what the low was from last week. The low was 1585. 1585. So it's 2 cents off with that yellow line that I drew based on, I think it's just kind of an approximate level, not locked into place. So yeah, I just kind of hand drew that up there. Seems like it's support there. But what are we seeing here in the volume? So as this is coming down, we have volume increasing as it's going down. So you have sellers dumping this, is what it looks like, and then it stops not because buyers pushed it up, but because sellers stopped selling. Because, it's like volume's increasing because people are selling, it's going down, so people are selling, and they're pushing it down. Buyers are not pushing it up when it stops. The sellers just stopped. And then it bounces up, but volume doesn't go up with it, or it doesn't notably go up with it. And then we see this big drop. Volume increases a little bit here, but not terribly notably. It's not terribly notable of a bounce there. But let's see, what's this fib extension drawn from? That's, I don't know if I adjusted that or anything, but, it's not locked into place, but it does look like it's just approximate based on, the high here to the low and then up to that high. And so the 618 extension is going to be around 1428, have not hit that. 786 around 1345, and then getting into the, 13 region with the 786 Fibonacci retracement. So the red line, not the orange. And then maybe below that around 12, worst case scenario. But I think like 13 seems like that would be acting as support if it does come lower. And we also do have the 618 there at around 15. So that's more precisely at 1482, but I just, rounded up to 15. So maybe that could be acting as support if it does come down. And something that looks a little bit bearish here, you might be able to see it. And let's see if I can pull up the correct tools. Not there. I think it's going to be in here. No. Yep, right here. All right, so maybe we got, I'm just going to do this really low here. just to have some fun. I can adjust that later. We got a little high here for the left shoulder. Pull down into the armpit, go up to the high. And then we see, you know, the lows over here. And, you know, it hasn't necessarily formed completely because, you know, if we're doing it based on the lows, it would have to come down a little bit lower, like to 15.15 or right around 15 bucks. And then that would be a head and shoulders pattern. And with that head and shoulders pattern, you kind of expect a further downside move, which, you know, we could just do by a little measurement here. And so that's basically like a straight line from the top of the head down and then take that distance. You know, I could do it with a ruler, but let's just do it with a straight line, a trend line. So let's just go straight down. And then if we measure that from where it would break over here, you know, it doesn't have to go down that low, but that would be suggesting these levels that I've talked about would be hit. So, I mean, I'm not really convinced it's going to go lower than 1172. So I'm not really going to suggest this here with that, but another way we could kind of do that measurement, which is a little bit maybe more hand wavy, a little bit more wonky, is just take the measurement from the top of the head, bring that straight down, and then we have the intersection of that midpoint with that line, and then just take that. So rather than going from, you know, that distance from here to here, from the break of the neckline, we're actually taking that from the horizontal, from where it initially touches the neckline, and then going down from there. And that would be suggesting a price of around, you know, 1039 or, you know, sub 11. But like I said, you know, I don't necessarily think that's going to happen. I think that, you know, 1172 is like bearish enough. And then once it gets there, then we could start to talk about it going lower. But, you know, I could really see it finding support around 13. I'd be more convinced with this, you know, higher lows over here. But yeah, I mean, hopefully that's helpful in looking at the chart. And I might just remove the drawings for a second. And so we can look at the monthly and see what this looks like. And yeah, this does kind of look like a double top. You also have, you know, very high volume, and that's with it selling off, coming down. So I think that this is probably going to come down. And what we can see here is like where we have like the consolidation high. So not necessarily the wicks going up, but just where you have like some overlap of the candles, like really like the close here in February, the open here in March, the close here in June, and I guess like the open in July. Also the wick high for May, and got some overlap here with November and December, you know, that candle there. A lot of consolidation there. Also, you know, let's actually just draw a rectangle, okay? I would, all my other drawings are going to pop up when I do this, but, you know, just kind of like over here, you see, you know, there's a lot of, you know, like meat and potatoes over here. You know, a lot of meat and potatoes. I don't know what that means. I'm just saying it. But that seems like there could be a lot of support. So I would think that it would have a hard time, you know, coming much lower than that, like 1172. That's the 100% extension to the downside. The 1618 is down to 757. I don't think that's happening. I think that around 12 bucks would be the absolute bottom for this. And that could be like, I mean, looking at this on the monthly, maybe we see a down month in November, and then maybe we see a wick down to like 12 in December, but then it closes back above like 13. That could be the bottom. And then maybe 2026 is, you know, start of the, you know, moves to the upside. So that's a possibility. I have no idea. Just throwing it out there. And let's see how I can leave the drawings up there. I'm just going to fast forward to the current time. And yeah, I mean, that's, I feel like it's probably going to be coming down to sub 15 at least. And we can also look at the contracts over here. So I'm just going to type in RKT. So, oops, we can see what's going on. And I believe this one does have some contracts. Highest volume, 750. So Changes and increase, sorry, but I want to look at the volume. Where's the volume? 51,000. So yeah, 50,000, 40. Open interest increasing by hundreds, by thousands over here. So we can also look at the change and increase in premium, or change in premium. Not necessarily change, but the amount of premium traded on the contract. So the one that's highest on the list is the $16.50 put. That's already expired. That expired worthless. So it's not surprising that a lot of premium was traded on that, because people were maybe swinging it and or closing positions, and trying to take out a little bit of money rather than ending with it expiring worthless, since it did close at 1666. The next contract that's the highest here as far as premium is going to be the $18 call that expires in March. Just about nearly $2 million there. And if we do sort this by open interest, maybe that's an easier or a more interesting way to look at this. We do see the $24.20 call there that expires. That's a really weird strike. Maybe they must have just done a split or something. Let's see. I feel like I've got like a leaf or something in my hair. I was doing some yard work earlier. Maybe it's a bug though. That expires in January. Sorry about that. Derailment of thought. Open interest coming down a little bit. Open interest though, that's less than 10% of the open interest. Maybe that's an interesting one to look at. I'm just going to put it over in the TRL tab so I don't get too cluttered. So that one, is highest open interest, 24.20. That is an increase between now and March. So that's potentially good. But then let's also look at the most premium, and then the $18. Oops, I did not want to do that. I wanted to, I guess I could just, I guess that's maybe a good lesson. I don't have to add them to the list necessarily. I might, let's see, just do this again. Highest volume. Let's first look at the most premium. And then let's look at this $18 one here. This is something that stood out as, volume has exceeded open interest. And so the open interest was 4,800 at the start of trading on Friday. Volume exceeded that. It was about 9.5 thousand. So it'd be very interesting to see what the open interest has changed into tomorrow. It does look like, if we just look over here on the 1 day, that net call premium came down. So this could be selling covered calls, maybe. It could be buying calls. I'm not sure exactly. But this increase here does suggest, it does suggest buying. I'm not exactly sure. I'm still, learning a lot with unusual whales. Because I was kind of, it seems like I was wrong about Snap around Halloween. I thought that was selling of puts. Open interest, let's just filter by that. And so let's look at this 24.20 one. Net call premium did come down. And it looks like, there's been some selling of this. Volume was about 4,900 on Friday. Will be interesting to see if that continues to decrease. And if we look over the past couple days, we did see, the red here in that volume, whereas the green volume over here. So maybe some were being sold, some were being bought. Generally looking at the chart, I think this could be coming lower, so I'd be cautious with it. And so I got through all of those, and so I'm just going to note that I've gone through all of them. And then I'll check up on the chart, but then let's see. What time did I say? Okay, so I was like, man, I've got a lot of time left. But this is actually overtime. So I'll just quickly check on the chat and see what other stuff is there. So already done the cheers, but I'll do it again. Cheers to you guys. Cheers to you. Another day, another trade. Weekends are so boring. It's nice when the market's open. I'm excited for Monday. Another day, another trade. Cool. So you got to see that. Cheers. And so Bruce has, FMST. So I'll do that one, and then that's going to be the last one just because I feel like my eyes are starting to close. And I don't have to be at work in the morning, but I do have some errands to run. I do have to do some painting while it's warm out tomorrow before it gets too cold. But yeah, FMST. I'll add that to the list, go over that, and then I will sign off after it. But yeah, so just minimize. Let's see. There we go. Got that out of the way, and I'll just minimize the chat so it's not blocking my view. And let's go over FMST. Foremost Clean Energy. Does not do what I thought it might do. So I put in a lower high. Let's actually remove the drawings. Let's just think about this. So, when I would have last gone over this would have been after it closed up here. Yeah, I think like volume is something that's really important to consider, but it's kind of tough to interpret correctly. But what we see here is as this is attempting to go higher, volume's not backing it up, staying flat, and then it loses strength. We do see lower highs, but we also see lower highs in the RSI and in the volume. So there's no bearish divergence there. This is a lower low. We do have lower low in the RSI, so there's no bullish divergence there. Let's just look at this on the monthly, see what's going on over here. This could be a bull flag, but we got these big wicks to the upside. And October looked like it attempted to break out above $4, got rejected. And it's a lower volume than it was over here. And so, there was a lot of interested buyers to push it up here. See all that volume. But now we're seeing all these wicks, those rejections, going up higher, but then coming back down. And then now at this point, it's like we got the attempts. Let's just zoom in here. This was for the month of May. Massive green candle, up 320% for the month of May. Insane. Lots of volume backing that up. But we also do see a wick higher right here. Just the cursor kind of blocks it, so I'm on the side there. A wick higher, but then it got rejected. And so this volume was willing to push it up this high, but that's it. They weren't willing to push it up higher and hold it there. They weren't willing to push it up higher and continue buying. And then the next month, in June, we see it go even higher, higher high. And then on the monthly, you see a lower high in the RSI. That's bearish divergence. Even though it's just two candles, two data points right there. It goes higher, but less volume. So not as much willing participants to push it up that high. They're saying, hey, no, we're fine down here. It comes back lower, consolidates, volumes cooling off, no big deal. It's still pretty well up from the lows over here. But then the next attempt to go higher got a wick above that cursor there, that line going across. Volume did increase, but not enough to push it back to the highs over here. There's just not enough fuel. There's not enough effort and enough willing buying participants to push it up and sustain it higher. So it might need to cool off some. Yeah, I always try to do when I change time frames, I try to not have the drawings up there. But yeah, it could be starting to break this trend line. And if it is, I'll do another doodle, which I may be completely incorrect on. But what would be bearish it's kind of done this in a couple of days, but let's say, it comes back to the 50% and then bounces up and gets rejected. That would kind of suggest further downside like that. And then that could be testing like the 618 around 250. Maybe that's happening now. I mean, with the close below that trend line, which it's just a trend line, it's not perfect. And then, kind of, I mean, really, I talked about this in some of the other charts, but like, downside move or upside move, and you get this kind of, spinning top or doji suggests indecision, could be a reversal. You also have decreased volume with a smaller spread in that candle that could be indicating that, there could be a reversal, just like we saw over here. Although volume increased because buyers pushed that back up and it went up. Over here, you're not really seeing that. So it is a decrease in volume, so it doesn't, I guess, look as good there, but there's no divergence in what you're seeing in the spread of the candles. And, maybe that would suggest that this is going to continue, whereas over here you do see a divergence, an increase in volume. Like you have a big widespread candle here and the price action coming down, smaller volume. And then you see a smaller spread in the candle going from up here to down here, beginning and end of the month. Smaller spread, but more volume. That says that buyers were willing to step in to push this up, to hold this up. And so that was kind of a change. And so following this downside move, you see a change. That would mean you see a reversal. There was not confluence. There was a divergence between the candle here being smaller than it was over here and the volume being larger, corresponding with this smaller candle, than the smaller volume over here corresponding with this bigger candle. So that divergence suggests a reversal. But then over here you see, let's think about this. Large candle, volume is less than over here. So that could suggest this is not backed up. You kind of get a day where it gets absorbed a little bit, but you have lower volume with that. So buyers are not like pushing this back up. So this could be, suggesting that there be a continuation. I don't really know, but you're just trying to give my breakdown of that, my thought process, as I try to understand, make sense of volume. But yeah, I mean, this could be coming down to 250, could be coming down to 2 or 170 right around there, which would be the 786. 250 would be the 618. So that could be happening. Because I remember the trend line here and that volume's effectively been decreasing, but what we need to see is a surge in volume for this to break out. There could be a surge in volume, but for this breaking down, and so that would not be a good look. But yeah, this did not go as I was hoping it would. And so let's just leave both of those up there. Maybe this is a fake out breakdown and maybe we see something that's similar to what I have drawn up there. But yeah, then let's just come over to the contracts to look at them. And this is FMST. And so I'll search that. I don't think that there are contracts with this one. I remember that from last week. But yeah, went over 5 tickers. Also rambled a bunch about some other ones, so hopefully that was helpful for you guys. But I don't know that anybody's still here, so what I am going to do is I'm going to, thank you all for joining. It's been fun night. But, as always, those are just my thoughts. If you found them helpful, make sure you like the video, share your thoughts in the comments down below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, more ticker request lives every Sunday or most Sundays. And I'll release a clip of the requests and I'll release a clip of the topic. Hope you guys have a great start to your Monday. I think it's going to be an exciting week, an exciting month. And I'll see you in the next one. I'll have a video out in the morning on, the rare earth element stocks, USAR and UAME. See you guys later. Take care. Bye.